Savik. Bloodaxe Assault Craft. Savik took a few slow, deep breaths as he worked to control his breathing. For the first time in years, he was rather nervous before a battle. It wasn't the fighting truly that bothered him. It was knowing that if he didn't do well, he might be brought back in to talk to those people in suits. He needed this to go well. He needed to prove that he was still an effective and useful soldier for Andromeda's fleet. He almost expected to hear that voice speak up to agree with him, but it only seemed to come around when he was alone. Slowly looking around the landing craft, he could see the others were grinning and talking about what they hoped to do with their R&R after the battle. Savik could feel the metal hum and throb beneath his feet then, and it felt like they were beginning a dive with the subtle shift in the pull of the gravity making him lean forward. That's when the screens turned on to show Andromeda's smiling face. Pirates! Today is a special day for us. For the first time in far too long, we do not land on this planet to raid it. We don't land to purge it. We land to conquer it. Immediately, there were murmurs of surprise around him, and Savik as well was curious. We claim this planet today as a base for our colony fleet. No looting, no fires, and be selective with your kills. Only pursue enemies wielding weapons. Allow them to surrender, but take your objectives and do the fleet proud. But remember, have some fun. Just after that, the surprising news continued, as the screen turned over to show Bloodaxe. Today we take a planet. This is not a boarding action. My Obsidian Company will meet you on the surface and guide your assault. Obey them as you obey Andromeda herself. Glory to the fleet. Glory in battle. It was a short message, but Bloodaxe wasn't exactly a big speechmaker in general. Savik gripped his axe a little tighter. After what had happened on that Xeno ship before, he had finally replaced the wood handle to his axe with a composite one. He wouldn't let them change the head, though, even with that chip in it. A planetary assault. He'd have to be more selective. He wasn't sure if that was better or worse for him, but he set his jaw then and pressed his earbuds into his ears, tapping on his wrist control to bring up his music. Sometimes it amused him to think that this music was intended for wealthy, spoiled kids in the cities to dance and jump to at clubs. That really didn't do any justice to one of the best activities for this sort of bass, heavy throbbing music. Killing. Slowly he began to move forward in the cramped landing craft, pushing the others to the side and behind him. They gave one look at him before parting to make way. He wasn't sure what his face looked like right now, but clearly it made them not want to mess with him. When the battle mist was sprayed down on them as they prepared to land, he held his mouth open wide to get as much of that wonderful drug cocktail into his system as he could, the heavy music throbbing in his ears. He was ready, and then the door opened. He was out and running in a moment, feet carrying him quickly across some sort of grassy field towards a town or city just ahead of them. All around he could see surprised-looking Desvians screaming and running into the buildings around them. Overhead, the scream of more incoming assault craft was impossible to miss. But so far, none of the Xenos had weapons, so he just kept running forward. The streets were made out of some sort of cobblestone and weren't exactly level, so it made his charge slow as he tried to compensate. Even so, he was moving plenty fast when he saw a Desvian run into the street ahead of him, one of their energy weapons in hand. The Xeno was looking up at the sky and the craft flying overhead before he turned and saw Savik. His eyes went wide, and he was starting to lift the weapon, but Savik was too close at this point for it to matter. He was already swinging his axe overhand, driving the blade down into the Xeno's skull. There was a cracking sound as the axe blade was buried halfway into his target's face, before Savik quickly set his foot on the pirate's stomach so he could jerk the blade free, as if he were simply removing an axe that had gotten caught in a log. The now dead Desvian dropped limp to the street, and Savik turned to look into the building that he had run out of. Inside he saw was he figured to be a bar or tavern of some sort, and from the looks of the other Desvians inside getting up with weapons in hand, it was a popular hangout for the Xeno pirates. He jerked his pistol free with his left hand and quickly fired a few rounds through the open door to get them to dive for cover, before he looked back down the street at the oncoming tide of friendly pirates. "Inside!" he shouted, and then started moving forward once more. He wasn't charging into there with an axe now that they knew he was outside. He was confident the others would clear out the structure as he holstered his pistol and ran forward once more, determined to get close to the heart of the city. More strike craft were screaming overhead, and he could see smoke on the horizon, and could only assume that's where the stronghold must be. He didn't see any of Bloodaxe's Obsidian Company yet, so without further orders he began to run that way. As he kept running, he realized that the buildings looked like something out of a vid set on ancient Earth. Lots of wood and, what was that dry grass stuff called? Thatch? They were also packed together very close as well. Lots of colorful variations though, as no two seemed to be quite the same. For a moment, he figured that this might be one of the easiest assaults he'd ever been on. There seemed to be plenty of civilians running and screaming to their homes to barricade themselves inside, but the amount of resistance he had been seeing was very low. But just as he rounded a street corner, he realized that he had that thought too soon. Up ahead was some sort of gatehouse made out of stone. Even in the midst of his battle rush, he had to stop and blink a few times to make sure he was really seeing that. It really was a stone gatehouse with some sort of iron gate blocking the road path. His surprise at seeing a millennia-old fortification in a time of interplanetary spaceflight was cut short when several Desvians leaned over the top and began to shoot at him. He quickly had to run for cover, diving into some sort of low stone ditch set into the side of the street between two buildings. From down here, he heard the impacts of the energy weapons hitting the street and walls around him. But he was safe. He just couldn't move. As he rolled over, he looked down the ditch and saw a small stone arch fitted with a metal grate. Crawling over to it, he looked in and was immediately hit by the smell, which made him grimace and pull back a little until he remembered he was being shot at. There was no way he was getting out of here the way he came, so that meant he had one choice. Rolling around ungracefully on the ground, he positioned himself with his feet near the grate so he could begin to kick at it. He was worried that perhaps this had been fortified in case someone tried this very tactic, but either no one had thought of it or the metal had rusted through long ago because it only took him 4 solid kicks to knock the gate in. Sliding on his back down the stone funnel of sorts, he couldn't see where he was going, but he just felt it out with his feet as he moved. A few feet in, he felt a drop, but the tightness of the opening meant he couldn't lean up to look down it. Figuring this was his only chance, he shoved himself forward, gripping his axe with both hands and prepared for a jarring landing. In truth, as he came out of the opening, he only had to fall a few feet before he landed on a metal walkway as the smell got even worse. He could barely see from the light coming in through the opening behind him, and more stretched up and down the tunnel, but as he turned on his shoulder light, he started to get a better picture of where he was. He was just at the edge of a large stream of what he had to assume was raw sewage based on the smell and sight. Thankfully, he had landed on one of the few metal grates that kept him from being dumped straight into the brown river. He looked left and right trying to figure out which way to go, but either way along the stone sewer tunnel, he saw nothing but a few old unlit torches on the walls. Then he looked down at the river and noticed it was flowing away from the gatehouse he'd just encountered. Should that be right? It probably follows an old riverbed. The town's fort would be built upstream for fresh water, and the further out it goes, the shittier it gets. Literally. So fuck the gatehouse and follow it the other way. Savick looked around slowly, but he was the only one down here. He gulped slowly and squeezed his axe a little tighter before turning up his music and following the path upstream. Downstream? The way the voice told him to go. He thought that was upstream. He could hear the sounds of battle above him, though it was muffled since he was down in the sewer. The smell was fairly awful, but he pushed through it and began to jog forward, not wanting to outright run since the stone path and metal grates were a bit treacherous at times, needing repairs decades ago. As he kept moving, though, he did notice that the water was slowly becoming clearer. He still wasn't sure if the voice was right about this being the best way to go, however. "Oh, it is. Just trust me. You'll see." Savick grit his teeth as the voice cut through his already loud music without issue. He came across periodic branches from the main sewer, but it was obvious he was on the main path when he came to a rather large junction. There was what looked to be a pond of some sort in the middle of the large junction, and he saw a small, mostly clear waterfall on the far side coming down from a raised portion of the sewer across a series of stone and metal bridges. Normally, even a shitty fortress would have some sort of protection to keep people from infiltrating their sewer system. Keep an eye out for guards, since I get the feeling they don't use killer robots with laser eyes. The voice was starting to kill his murder buzz that the drugs and music had helped bring up, so he just sighed and turned the music off before tugging the earbuds free. Looking around the area, he didn't see anyone else down here, and all he could hear was the muffled sounds of battle still, that and slowly moving water. He began to cross the bridges towards the raised section, where he'd find some way to climb up, when he heard the water splash a little, and then the sort of growl and hiss that reminded him of some sort of killer dinosaur monster in a vid. So in this case, it looks like they're employing some sort of giant alien croc or gator. I can't tell if it's snaggletooth just yet, but based on the ridges, I'm guessing it's about 25 feet long. Savick turned to look, and sure enough, he saw a creature start to rise up out of the water that very much looked like a dinosaur or croc or possibly a gator. It had a massive body easily 7 feet wide in the middle, but instead of reptilian eyes, it had black orbs without pupils. The snout rising up was easily 6 feet long, he figured, but then the thing just kept rising up. He stepped back a little as it kept rising, and that 6-foot-long snout ended up being just the top of a massive maw that looked like it could fit him inside of it. The body he had thought was the middle turned out to just be the top of a ridged spine, and he no longer felt like he was facing a giant croc. The giant sewer dragon rises out of the shit pond and it looks pissed off. Probably because it lives in a shit pond. "Roll a d20 for initiative!" The creature before him let out a bellowing howl as Savick felt the hot breath wash over him, spittle and likely sewage being splattered across him. "Looks like the dragon goes first!" He saw the arm rising up to swipe at him and dove sideways to avoid it as the clawed hand slammed into the bridge he'd been standing on, splintering and smashing some of the stones. He turned then, axe in hand, as swung it hard, slashing the reptilian arm that had tried to crush him. The blade cut open a deep gash which began to gush a purple blood as the dragon howled in pain. "Oh, looks like you only inflicted minor wounds. Cast lightning bolt! Lightning bolt!" Savick backed up as the dragon twitched and lashed out with the wounded arm, and Savick ducked the swipe before pulling his pistol free and firing somewhat wildly at the creature's head. "I said lightning bolt. I didn't say cast bullets at it." The creature surged forward then, mouth opening wide as it snapped at him. Savick could barely dodge back in time to avoid the snapping jaws, but he was off balance and fell forward onto the creature's snout. Hug it! Most animals like this have massive crushing force in their jaws, but poor opening force. Hug it! Without thinking, he hugged the creature's snout then, desperately holding onto his axe with one hand and his pistol with the other. Sure enough, the creature tried to open its jaw, but his grip was keeping it shut. What wasn't helpful was that it simply leaned back, lifting its head into the air and bringing him along with it. "All right, cowboy. Looks like you're going to need to hold on for at least 10 seconds to beat the record and win the rodeo." "Yeehaw!" The creature growled through its closed mouth and began to shake its head violently then, while Savick screamed and held on for dear life. Finally, the dragon stopped that and lowered its head once more, bringing up a clawed hand to try and scrape him off. When Savick saw those giant talons getting close, he let go of the snout and shoved himself back, falling to a stone bridge below. While he landed hard on his back with a groan, he didn't let the pain distract him. In a moment, he was getting up and reloading his pistol before taking aim and firing at the dragon's head more accurately now. It howled and tried to shield its face with its hands, but he could see purple splashes where bullets were slamming into punching holes in the thing's flesh. Dude using the pistol is totally cheating. I mean, sure, you don't have shining armor and a longsword, nor do I expect a beautiful princess to be living in a sewer, but you should really just be using the axe. It's more poetic. He grit his teeth as he tried to ignore the voice and reloaded his pistol once more. For a second, he thought the creature was about to retreat as it turned away from him, starting to sink back into the pond. But that's when he saw the tail rising up out of the water. He threw himself flat on the bridge as it swung through the air just above him, and then rolled to his left before it could slam down on the part he was on. Then he rolled to the right as it slammed down on the other section. Before it could lift up again, he swung his axe one-handed across his body to drive it into the creature's tail. He was rewarded with a deep cut and another howl as he nearly severed the last 2 feet of tail. More purple blood gushed out, and as the tail lifted up, it coated him with the hot liquid, leaving him stained purple as he coughed and spluttered to keep it out of his mouth. When he rose to his feet, he looked down into the pond and saw the water rippling and splashing around from the movement of the dragon that had just submerged itself. $20 says you can't dive in there and finish the job. "I'm not diving down there." "That's insane!" Savick bellowed out, finally tired of this voice. "But that's what you do!" "You charge into battle with a fucking fire axe. You are insane! You've got a voice talking to you from nowhere. You think you're sane?" Savik spun around the area, growling as he did. Show yourself! But there was no one around him, just the puddles and splashes of purple blood, plus plenty dripping off of him. Don't you get it, fuckwad? He kept looking around, thinking he'd see the source of this maddening voice. I'm you. Me? He asked, now more confused. Yeah, numbnuts, you. I was forced to create myself because you were too fucking stupid to understand what was going on that alien ship. Zeno, he muttered quietly. Fucking whatever. You didn't get what they were talking about. They wanted to hurt Caroline. And you didn't get it. You fucking Neanderthal. So I had to take over and set things right. But now I'm stuck here. I thought I'd be able to hide away again, but I guess it doesn't work that way. Who are you? Savik asked, as he squeezed his axe tight in both hands, the weight comforting him for some reason. I just told you, dummy. I'm you. Just the smart one. You're the moron son of a moron minor of a moron minor, and so on and so forth back who knows how goddamn long. You did two things right and two things only. You got the fuck out of the mines and into the fleet where your aggression and thick skull can actually get you somewhere in life and finding Caroline. Everything else has been me, the smart one trying to nudge you down the best fucking paths that's obvious to anyone who's got more than half a brain. Savik frowned, then wondering why this voice. If it really was him, why it was such an asshole. I'm an asshole because I've been having to make do in the empty, cobweb-infested pit of despair known as your pitiful fucking brain. Look, you need me and you can't get rid of me. Those aliens wanted to hurt Caroline, and there's a good chance there's more of them out there. Not to mention those guys in the suits who think you're nuts. And, well, you are nuts, but you need me to help you pretend you're not, or they'll toss your ass into space and be done with you. Then who will help Caroline? Huh? Do you want her to be alone? To live the life we fucking saved her from? Huh! Speak up, retard! No, Savik muttered quietly. There was a sound that was a sigh, but strange, because the voice didn't have a way to sigh, maybe? He really didn't know. Look, I'm sorry. Fights make me aggressive and honestly abusive. Plus, it's fucking cramped up here hiding away. You're not smart, and that frustrates me sometimes. But you're not as bad as I made you out to be. We both care about Caroline and want to protect her. We're both on the same side! I mean, I was just helping you out, right? Savik wasn't sure how he felt about this voice apologizing to him for berating himself. No, I get it. And it's confusing, sure. I'll promise to hold off on the insults in the future. I just need to stretch a bit more. In fact, move over. Savik shuddered and gasped, eyes flickering open and closed for a few seconds before he felt like he couldn't move. But he saw his hands move, giving the axe a few swings. Then he seemed to tilt side to side as if he were, I told you, I'm just stretching a little. His body seemed to be going through a calisthenics routine which he couldn't stop, and then after a minute he stopped and shuddered and gasped once more before he could suddenly control his limbs once more. We're going to have to work out some sort of timeshare system. I really don't need your body much unless I really have to take control like I did back on that ship. Maybe when you're asleep I'll just exercise a bit. Keep me from getting too sore and cramped from lack of movement. Savik looked down at his hands and slowly wiggled his fingers around the axe he held before he wiggled his toes in his boots as well. Can you do that at any time? I think so. Haven't really tried much. I'm just as new to this as you are, but since I'm smarter I've got an easier time getting a hold of what to do. So, you remember what happened on the ship? He asked then, his brain hurting a little as he tried to recall what few fuzzy memories he had of it. Sure do. But don't think I'm going to tell you. You don't need to know. In fact, from here on out, if there's gaps in your memories, just figure I'm doing it to protect you. And act like everything's totally normal, or someone might catch on, and we don't want that. Savik began to wonder if he should get help. No, you don't want to do that. If they think you're nuts, they'll toss your ass into space. And you know it. Those guys in suits! You could feel it even then. They don't give a fuck about you. They just want to make sure you aren't going to kill friendlies. And even if they don't toss you into space, they'll probably take Caroline away. We've got to work through this together, buddy. You and me. What's more important? You or Caroline? Scratch that. We share a fucking body after all. What's more important? Us. Or her well-being? Savik thought it over for a moment and nodded slowly. He had to agree that she was more important no matter what. Exactly. So just stick with me. I promise no more insults. That was uncalled for. I just hate being so close to a kill and then to lose it. Especially a fucking dragon. How epic would that be? We could wear its bones for armor and be a total badass. Don't you want that? Savik leaned over a little to look at the pond of sewage beneath him. Them? So, you want me to try and dive into raw sewage to fight that thing where it lives? After he asked that, the silence hung in the air for a few seconds, and he thought the voice might be gone. No, I'm still here. I'm just thinking it over. You're right. It isn't worth it. We'll finish the battle and come back with a fuckton of explosives. All right?